Hey, what's up, family? Great to see you, or at least you're seeing me, but you know how it goes. Welcome to Home Group. Man, this series has been awesome so far on the Holy Spirit, our Come Holy Spirit series, and it's almost coming to a head here on May 23rd. Definitely don't miss May 23rd. Sunday morning at East, Vance Murphy is going to be with us as our special guest. Sunday morning at West, Pastor Jennifer Kennedy will be preaching over there. And then we're all coming together for a one church special service at the East Campus Sunday night, May 23rd at 6:30 p.m. And Vance Murphy will be our guest minister in that service. The Trinity West praise team is going to be bringing worship that day, or that evening. So, man, it's going to be an awesome day all day long. So it's going to be like old times, man. We're going to have Sunday morning. We're going to have lunch and go home and take a nap, get up and do it all again Sunday night. And as I always say in my sermons, the best stuff always happens on Sunday night. Okay, I got filled with the Holy Spirit on a Sunday night service, and it was great. So I'll always say that. I'll always believe that. But so it's going to be a great day. Don't miss it. But here tonight in Home Group, let's get down to business with what we're going to be discussing. I'm kind of taking the whole series here and kind of creating a discussion that's based on everything, not just one of the messages. But if you think about your experience with the Holy Spirit, let's remember that your experience with the Holy Spirit began before you were even born again, because you had to hear the Holy Spirit calling you to even be born again. So you know how to hear the Spirit's voice, no matter where you are in your Christian walk. If you've been born again, then you have responded, you've heard, and you have responded to the Spirit's voice. So, number one, I don't want you to ever think that I can't hear the Holy Spirit. I promise you, you can. Even sinners can hear his call, okay? So, but starting at our born again experience, being the very first experience we have of the Holy Spirit, we can have many, many, many experiences with the Holy Spirit, and they can be so diverse. It can be for all kinds of purposes that the Holy Spirit is working in your heart and in your life. They can be quiet, very short little experiences where you just hear his voice. They can be a long experience. They can be highly emotional. They can be not emotional at all. But you can sometimes get a revelation or some kind of aha moment from the Holy Spirit. There are so many different experiences with the Holy Spirit. Tonight, though, I want us to discuss this concept of walking with the Spirit, because the Holy Spirit's not an experience. The Holy Spirit, and this whole idea is a relationship, right? So in our relationship with the Holy Spirit, for some of us, that's a brand new concept, because we think of the Holy Spirit as kind of something we open up and deal with and then close it up and put it away until the next time, or the next church service or the next experience. But a relationship is something that is ongoing, right? Well, this relationship produces things. This relationship produces the fruit of the Spirit in us. And it also can produce the gifts of the Spirit if we are willing to work with the Holy Spirit and listen and submit and obey to the Holy Spirit. So, but there's this verse in Galatians that's excellent. It's the fruit of the Spirit passage, and it's in your notes, in your app notes. So definitely pull up your app notes and follow along and with me here. But in Galatians chapter 5, it says that walk in the Spirit and you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Verse 17, for the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another. So there's always some kind of tug of war, a battle going on inside of us. And are we going to go in the direction of the influence of the Holy Spirit? Or are we going to go into the direction of the influence of our own flesh, which is going to be against the things that the Spirit wants to produce in us? So think about the fruit and the gifts and how maybe your flesh has warred against the influence of the Spirit in your life. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But maybe even as you were seeking the baptism of the Holy Spirit, I prayed with a lady at the West Campus just a couple of weeks ago, and she had told me she had been seeking the Holy Spirit for years. And I asked her, well, what has been your barrier? What's kind of stood in the way? She said, I've always thought that, I've always worried that I would look silly, and I didn't want to look stupid. And so that's been my barrier. And my goodness, isn't that our flesh warring against the work of the Holy Spirit in us? It limits the Holy Spirit. It limits the Spirit's activity in us. So that's how our flesh can do that. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. And I want us to explore that, because our relationship with the Holy Spirit can be highly spiritual, and we can really start to produce a lot of the fruit of the Spirit, or we can walk around very carnal in our behavior. And so I want us to talk about how that works in our lives and how that applies to the Holy Spirit's influence and being able to produce fruits of the Spirit in us. Which, by the way, you don't have to be baptized in the Holy Spirit to have the fruit of the Spirit produced in you. Okay? We have folks in our church, some that are baptized in the Holy Spirit, some that aren't, some that are seeking, some that are just kind of, I don't know about that yet. So, but I want you to know that everybody, no matter where you are in your relationship or your experience with the Holy Spirit, you can be producing the fruit of the Spirit. You can even be operating in some gifts of the Spirit. However, there are some that I believe that really open up in a greater measure once we are baptized in the Holy Spirit, because then everything about the Spirit, our relationship with the Spirit gets more active and more intense and deeper when after we are baptized in the Spirit. So look over these gifts of the Spirit as well, because there are gifts of motivation where you might be gifted to teach. And you can be gifted to teach from the womb. You could be a gifted leader or someone who's gifted in mercy or showing compassion. You don't have to be baptized in the Holy Spirit to have those gifts kind of from the womb, just like Jeremiah was, right? But then some of the manifestation gifts, maybe obviously the interpretation of tongues and the diversity of tongues, those require you to have gone through the baptism first, but anyway, there are many spiritual gifts that are available and you can operate in short of having been baptized in the Holy Spirit. But there's such a diversity of these experiences with the Spirit. We want to hear from each of you tonight about your experience with the Holy Spirit and how sometimes our flesh gets in the way, or sometimes how are we able to be successful at that, at allowing that flow of the Spirit to really, really be turned on fully in our lives, so that our flesh is not really standing in the way as much. And that, again, that can be applied to the baptism of the Holy Spirit. It can be applied to the gifts of the Spirit. It can also be applied to the fruit. So let's dive into that this evening.